During the pandemic, the world changed faster than anybody could ever imagine, and so did the consumer habits. They plunged into the world of digital and have swiftly adopted to it. In the next panel discussion, we'll discuss CX in the times of new normal. I would like to welcome Pooja Johari, CEO, The Glitch, to moderate the discussion. Welcome, Ms. Johari.
Good afternoon and welcome. I'm really excited to see all of you. Today we're going to discuss customer experience in the time of the new normal. During the pandemic, the world has changed. We all know that. That's no new news, right? And customer habits have changed drastically. In fact, they have a trend that we thought would take about 10 years to sort of come up has happened over the last 2 years. And over the course of this discussion, that's what we're going to talk about. All your experience in the various fields that you guys lead. It would be so interesting to understand your experiences, how you've navigated this really, really tough time. And the important aspect is how can people learn from your experiences? Because that's really what this entire session is about. So I'm really delighted to introduce our stellar panel. I'm going to start with Anshul Khanna. Anshul is the Senior Marketing Director and the India Foods Category Head for PepsiCo, managing the snacks and nutrition portfolio. He has been with PepsiCo for over 19 years, working in India, in the US, and in Europe. He has led PepsiCo's flagship brands in India in the past, and he has led the global portfolio transformation for PepsiCo's core brands to reduce sugar. He has also led the global flavors portfolio for PepsiCo in the beverages role before. To Smita Murarka, Chief Marketing Officer, Duroflex. Hi, Smita. Smita is a result-driven international brand marketer with over 18 years of experience building brands in the fashion and lifestyle industry. Her experience covers all diverse functions of marketing, brand strategy, e-commerce, product and range management, sales and operations, and business development. Delighted to see that she also has stellar awards on her mantle as well. So Women Achiever Award from the World Women Leadership Summit, the iStar Youth Achiever Award as CMO Asia, is also part of the LinkedIn Top 50 Content Marketers and has won Social Media Superwoman Award. That's awesome, Smita. Congratulations. It's good to see you. Amit Ahuja, Vice President Sales at Netcore. Hi, Amit. Amit is a sales leader with a proven track record of scaling businesses across technology, media, and the services domain, skilled with solution selling capabilities, mentoring high-performing sales teams, and building long-standing client relationships. It's good to see you, Amit. And now lastly, Anand Narang, VP Marketing and CX for Bata India. Anand is a successful business leader with 20 years of experience as a CMO, with experience in e-commerce and category leadership roles in MNCs and startups. He has evangelized, built, and driven demand for consumer goods, e-commerce, omni-channel, digital services, and a variety of business models, with retail businesses at Nokia, Bata, Huawei, Airtel, and Jio in Europe, APAC, and LATAM. Welcome to our panel, and thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I'm going to jump right in, and CX / customer experience is not a buzzword. It's really what drives us today, right? It is not just the brand experience of it all, which marketers have focused on for such a long time. But in this digital world, if we're not able to manage the entire funnel of the experience, we're basically losing. And we're losing the customer in this extremely crowded and noisy world. What I'm so keen to understand, I'm going to start with Amit. Your question. My question to you, before I get to all the brand leaders, is that in your experience of working with brands across categories, how have you seen brands adapting in this absolutely crazy time that we're operating in?
Yeah, hi everyone, and pleasure to be here with you guys. So I think what we really seen in our experience, Pooja, is in fact, if I kind of want to divide this into three different categories of organizations, right? So there are organizations who are, who've kind of now moving from the offline world to the online world. right? And who are compelled to now thinking on what do we do on the online space. So I think for that category of organizations, what we've really seen is that they're trying to figure out how do they start capturing digital footprints of their customers. How do they basically get their stacks in place? How do they kind of start looking at data analytics and trying to figure out how to better their conversions and ROIs and so on and so forth. For organizations who typically been like the D2C organizations who've kind of started digitally first are the ones who've now started thinking full stack. That they're now thinking that how do I focus on my entire end-to-end experience? How do I stitch if I have offline and online together? And so they're thinking more full stack in our view. And then of course there are a third category of organizations who have always been digital first. You have all the Mintras and the Ajios of the world who are now thinking a step forward. They're thinking actually that how do we have more hyper personalized experiences for our audiences. They are now thinking step ahead in terms of figuring out how do we do better around visual personalization, search based personalization. So they're thinking more hyper personalization in that sense. So it's kind of divided between organizations who fall into these three different categories, and that's how I think all three of them are kind of behaving right now, or are looking at their entire digital experience journey.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? That the D2C guys have almost have leaped forward, something that would have taken them a few extra years. The last 2 years have actually been favorable to them, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, a lot of brands that we work with right now in the space, brands like Boat, who've kind of, completely taken the market by storm. So I think for each of these guys, like I said, now they are kind of, redefining how things are to be done. Kind of rethinking through how they really want to look at the entire customer journey, the entire experience put together. Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for that, Amit. Anshul, to you, this was also a very good time for the food and beverage industry, wasn't it?
No, it absolutely is. I think it's been a great time for the food and beverage industry, also because for us particularly, as leader brands, and consumers have actually, during the times of the pandemic, they have actually moved to trusted leader brands. So it's clearly something that we see has come as a tailwind, despite the challenges. So absolutely, I think we see it as something that has enabled us to therefore drive penetration and drive new occasions in our categories for sure.
What would be interesting, Anshul, is if you could just talk about one example that would benefit our listeners and our audience, a strategy that you used in the time of the pandemic that really helped boost sales.
Yeah, and I can actually talk to one of the more recent examples that we've now done. See, I think it's really important that as a CPG and as an FMCG company, that you actually look at the pandemic in the context of what I would call as human drivers, right? Basic human drivers. And what you've really seen is it's drivers of security and control and connections that have become more important, right? And so therefore, what's really happened is what the people in terms of the new lifestyle changes that people are making in order to manage the financial, the mental well-being. We're actually seeing 4 key behavioral shifts. We are clearly seeing an emergence of what I would call as new social and work-life routines, a kind of blurring of lines, right? That we've all seen, right? We've seen an acceleration of Abhi pointed out of digital and online purchase. We've clearly seen consumers seeking trust and reassurance in the brands that they are now opting for. And we've obviously also seen, what I would call as the heavily planned purchase, part of the, of the purchase cycle building out. And I think the implications for us as, as marketeers have been very clear, I think, and I'll give you an example, as you said. So one such imperative for us on, one of my brands, Lays, that I manage, is how do you win in these new occasions, right? So behavior has fundamentally shifted. In the way we work and learn and how we shop and eat and drink and all of that. And how do you make your brands, what I would call as how do you make your brands moment perfect and salient in the occasions of the future, right? So snacking consumption, for instance, has shifted in home, and it has declined in what we call as, away from home channels and on the go, because obviously, consumer occasions have shifted in home. And the challenge for us is how do we remind consumers to, stock their favorite Lays at home, where we are actually under index versus, traditional namkeens, for instance. And so the campaign that we had rolled out, earlier this year, and you might have seen it, was, Ghar par Lays always. which was Lays at home always. So it's been a 360 campaign, and that's actually modeled on our learnings on the new consumer purchase journey during the pandemic. And we actually identified very salient in-home occasions that Lays over indexes on. For example, accompanied TV viewing, right? Fun at home, working at home. And then we actually launched special, say, 50 rupee, Lays packs, and calling out those occasions in a very fun way. So, the WAH pack was actually the work at home pack. And then the MOA pack was the movie watching at home pack, right? The R pack was the Adda at home pack. I think, and then what we did was we actually segmented our core consumer audience, through the lens of the pandemic. So you actually have the, people like us, the Zoom fatigued, I would say, 25-year-old plus, upper middle SEC early jobbers. And then you actually got the 18 to 22-year-old, college kids who are kind of fun seekers and are kind of cooped in. And we then actually created, a multi-copy campaign with both long and short, say, format films on digital and TV, addressing those audiences and reminding them of the perils of not stocking Lays at home. And the campaigns work fantastically well for us. We've actually had our strongest growth in years on our large packs. We've actually had the highest growth in our in-home consumption frequency, and we've seen very strong equity gains. I think it's an example of how consumer journeys have changed and how brands need to address them to drive growth, Pooja.
Yeah, I really liked that example, Anshul. And I think it was pretty on point to listen to what was happening and then be able to provide for it. So thanks for that example. I really enjoyed that. Vida, when I actually saw you on the list, for me, I'm so curious to know how it has been for you, because as a category, this is an extremely difficult category potentially to sell on, is my experience. I could be wrong. So could you talk about how it has been the last 2 years and how you really and your organization has adapted to this new normal?
Yeah, Pooja, while externally and of course COVID per se has not been something good, but the strength of people and brands are periods like this, right, where the strong emerge stronger and more in spirit. So for us at Duroflex, we were a brand which was offline predominantly, and we that was the industry of mattresses and sleep products, and the awareness level in this industry, the need for the product was very, very low. It still continues to be, but it has improved quite a bit, 3x or 4x compared to what it could have been without the pandemic. So, as Anshul was mentioning, the occasions drastically changed. For us, earlier pre pandemic, the occasions would be a forced kind of a purchase where they're getting married or they're getting into a new home, they're having a kid. So, it was almost like you have to buy a mattress or it's worn out after X number of years. But post pandemic, consumers' awareness towards the category really increased. They started spending a lot of time in their homes on their mattress because it was beyond sleeping. And when all the excuses of the outside world of a bad sleep, like went away, where you're saying that you're stuck in traffic and therefore you're tired or you have back pain, and all those went away, right? You were at home. So you started realizing what a difference the product makes. On top of that, as a brand, we were the most active in trying to educate consumers. So it's very important for brands also. Our learning has been that it's very important for brands also to take a stance where they really uplift the lives of the category consumers, even during bad periods when there is no sales. I think that's where real strong brands strengthened even more, right? Because at this period there was no sales. So even when all the stores were shut, we continue to make conversations around sleep, what is the importance of sleep, and did a lot of content marketing around that. And that's what really helped us win the confidence of consumers, made consumers search for our brands even when the offline stores opened up. The second interesting thing which happened to our brand was because we were not so forced by the norms of the category anymore. We really became an omni brand in its true sense of product parity, price parity, being digital and e-com friendly. And today, a lot of our brand building efforts, a lot of our communication efforts are digital first. and we are one of the leading brands in e-commerce also, right? So we've become an omni brand within 1.5 years. So it really goes to show that if you understand the sentiments of the consumer, if you understand the changes that the external or the internal environment brings in a consumer, and if you go as per that, good brands can strengthen no matter the situation. But if you continue to do things in a very boxed way, and don't think consumer first, then it's about channels, and you continue to be restricted by the channels. So for us, we were channel agnostic as soon as the pandemic happened. We were business agnostic for the time that we couldn't sell. We continued to make sleep conversations, which today have a large importance. So a lot of editors, journalists, the whole media is talking about sleep as a pillar of health. That really emerged, which was the crux of the conversation that we're making. In fact, we had one of our largest campaigns during World Sleep Day this March, and that was called Sounds Asleep. In fact, it went quite viral, got quite popular. It was targeted at young parents like you, which was about getting the lost lullabies, regional lullabies back, and it had a huge connect. So a lot of people resonated with it, and they felt emotional. And that again did not have a business impact, but it was about what we stood for, improving the quality of sleep and connecting people back to sleep. Cut to now, where we have a new brand ambassador. We have Alia Bhatt as a brand ambassador talking about mattress and the innovation. And that's something where it is intended to sell our products, and it is intended to sell more of the mattresses. But then there is a overall connect that we make great products which improve sleep. So I think at the crux of it is a very strong brand positioning, a very strong ethos, and really following your consumer sentiments, and making sure that you're on par with consumer sentiments, and you're honest about it, and you're really talking the same language. You're not somewhere else. The brand is somewhere else, and the consumer is somewhere else at that point. So for us, these were the strong learnings that we got.
Yeah, and finding a really authentic way to communicate what everybody was feeling, because everyone invested so much in doing up their personal space because we were all cooped in. And yeah, I see that. Thanks a lot for that, Smita. Anand, I'm going to come to you. I'm sorry I've kept you waiting, but big iconic brand that
Yes.
that bought out. And I'm pretty sure that you've had some winning strategies over the last couple of years. Do share those with us. What I'm very keen, and you could take this as a follow-up question, is that did you focus on certain kind of products, certain kind of ranges over the last couple of years, as you listened to this consumer who was really putting out their sentiment, at least on Twitter, at least a certain category of them, right? So that's my second follow-up question, but over to you.
Sure. So I think we had very, similar learning that, Anshul and Smita talked about, Amit talked about. In fact, we worked with Amit's company also. So few of the learnings that we saw, and I will actually give you a transition. So wave 1 and wave 2 of COVID. India has seen both waves. And what we saw was, people earlier were looking for simple product availability. Is the store open? So, getting those kind of simple information across to consumers. So being a direct to consumer brand selling in our own stores, we saw that, okay, we need to actually upgrade our digital infrastructure in terms of, just allowing people to discover the store, call up the store manager, is this available? Because the window shopping occasions actually went down. As Anshul said, people were consuming products more at home. And this also changed the nature of the categories that people were actually buying. So, previously people would buy formal and fashion, and those occasions actually went down. So there was increasing focus, as Smita also talked about, on health, on the caring economy. So people wanted to rejuvenate, suddenly becoming very health conscious. And we saw, the increase in our fitness, which is the power range for us, it actually went up, Also, the other thing that we saw was that, as people were stuck at home, or even when they're actually venturing out, they were actually going slightly to nearby places. Let's say if you're going for grocery shopping, you want to step out for buying a Lay's chips or anything else, So the emergence of 2 mile fashion came in, which is more athleisure style. So comfort and practicality of the products actually started coming. So I think these were the 2 big trends across there. The third one, I would say, is one of the learnings for us was this flight to digital and omni-channel. because no longer it was a linear journey for consumer that you walk into a store, you speak to the store manager or the staff, you discover what's available there, and then you shop, and you complete your purchase or shopping. People were stuck at home, so the discovery was starting on .com. So the website was actually one of the first ones. So what we did, we actually looked at how I could segment my consumers into 2 or 3 cohorts based on their digital literacy. So typically in the e-commerce world, it's one solution fits all. And we saw this as an opportunity because we cater to a wide family audience. It's not only the youth, but also the I would say the young professional, but also family owners, and I would say even the 50 or plus. We need to cater and create to all these audiences with different solutions. So we basically said, okay, one of them would be called as digital natives, guys who are very comfortable, browsing, looking at the .com sites, very comfortable from apps and everything. So for them, we scaled up our offering on Bata.in. So previously, let's say different stores would carry different merchandise, the online range would be actually slightly more exclusive. But we said because people are actually trying to discover from their home, sitting at home, can I actually give them the 5,000 styles that I have available across multiple stores? So we stitched up the inventory across all stores. So that's where the first omni-channel journey came. The second one was, the digital adopters, which are people in their, let's say, I would say in 40s, who would actually like to, speak to a store manager, consult them, and get some inputs from them. So for them, we created a WhatsApp shopping solution. We allowed them to actually enter their location in the WhatsApp. So they could actually start chatting with a number. So it starts with a number, the journey. And from there, they actually enter their location. The system pops up, the 3 nearest stores. And then the store manager, one of the store managers would actually start chatting with them. If they say, okay, I'm looking for, let's say, fitness shoes. So the store managers would send them a catalog. Because these are the consumers, remember, they are very uncomfortable probably going to a .com site. They would like to pick up the phone, or probably they could also get into a video chat with the store manager. So we saw a lot of customers actually doing video calls, saying, can you show me that product? How does it actually look across there? And the final one I would say is, I would say the parents generation, we call them as digital novice. And for them, we actually created a solution which was store on wheels. So Bata store on wheels. And we would actually take permission from the condominium, from the residents welfare association. And we would actually set up a mini kiosk there. And in those kiosks, we would actually sell, display and sell, the more frequently bought shoes. So that included more the essential range, which is flip-flops, to some fitness styles, and even for kids, because kids were also stuck at home, across there. But then we supported it with a digital catalog on a tablet. So if something was not available, they could quickly be scanned and they could actually be home delivered. So we scaled up our home delivery channel across there, So these were some of the learnings. And as we went along, we saw that our digitally enabled channels, they moved from something like 4 or 5% of contribution to going up to 15%. So we almost had like almost 3x jump there.
Thank you for that, Anand. Very interesting. And, that leads me to my question to Amit. As clients talk to Netcore and to you about the sophistication of their CX, destinations and their entire experience, can you give us examples of how it has potentially evolved, in the last couple of years, especially because just look at what Anand just spoke about, right? That the way they divided their customer base into various cohorts, some of them were just not okay to shop on e-com. Are you also providing various levels of sophistication when you're actually building out these destinations?
Yes, Pooja, absolutely we are, and I think it kind of goes in line with the way the brand's journey or the customer's journey is kind of evolving, right? So at some point of time, like I said, looking at just the customer's journey and trying to make sure that we're able to bring in the right interventions at the right point of time, and bring back the customer, or ping him or nudge him at the right time. To now moving to a point where we're talking about, can I actually have a very personalized boutique sort of an experience created for a customer when he actually comes on, say for example, on the Bata website to actually come and shop, or maybe on the Duraflex website to come and shop. And today we're seeing that. So with brands like, say, a Vero Moda, or a Body Shop, you actually have algorithms that are running, on their website, website, on their digital assets, which are actually creating personalized boutiques and personalized experiences, for their customers. And these are all being done by the machine. So it's not really a human sitting and deciding on what I really want to show to Smita when she comes onto my website, but it's actually a machine recommending, the products, personalizing the entire web experience, the app experience, for users. To actually getting onto a point saying, okay, while I'm personalizing the experience, am I also being able to nudge him in a certain way where I'm also able to handle the user to a certain journey? And I'll give you an example, right? With a brand like Nykaa, there are times when we got very interesting intervention where you could actually put a product in a cart, and you actually express your interest, and hence you put the product in the cart, but then you bounced off, right? Because something occurred and you said, look, maybe I don't want to purchase it right now, or maybe you found it expensive, or whatever reason, right? Now, after 5 days, you come back to the Nykaa website, and the moment you come onto the website, we would actually have a nudge coming up saying, hey, look, you had this in your cart, which probably costed an X price, but now is available at a certain discount. And you actually then are kind of nudging the user to take a certain behavioral route, and then driving him to do a transaction. So I'm thinking it's a journey that we've come across now, from saying, okay, was it pure play, some basic customer journeys, to bringing in a whole lot of personalization, and then now also bringing in that entire nudging and handholding of users. And I think that's adding a lot more value, to brands. Another very interesting brand that we worked with is a dating app. And the problem that we actually saw was, when a lot of new female users would sign on to the app, we realized that news of females would sign in and then suddenly bounce off and start, uninstalling the apps. And and then we kind of looked at data, and we realized that whenever a new female user signs onto the app, she immediately would get like thousands of male friend requests, and that would actually cheese them off, and they would really bounce off. Now, what did we do really, right? So what we said was, look, the moment a new female user signs onto the app and she launches the app for the first time, the first thing the entire app home screen will get kind of dimmed, and only one section she'll be pointed to one section where she can, there'll be an arrow pointing and saying, hey, you can go here and set up your preferences of how many requests you want to receive and from who, right? So that gives the power into the hand of the users and saying, look, I can now decide who I really want to talk to or not want to be friends with. So I'm saying these are very intelligent sort of interventions that we've been able to bring in. So like I said, right from starting off with some very, very basic, journeys, to now bringing in very contextual and very relevant sort of engagement for users.
Thanks. That was so interesting. I really enjoy the dating app. It's amazing how powerful data is, right? It just it's mind-boggling, because this is the superpower. Whoever has the sharpest data is basically the one who's winning. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think you got to, and I think everybody's got tons of data. The question is, how are we really using that, and then use to kind of build more intelligent sort of engagement with the users.
Yeah, I enjoy that. Thanks a lot for that, Amit. Anshul, coming to you, how important was community? And how important is community? I mean, I run an agency, so I do know the answer to that. But for you, on all of the channels that Pepsi exists, and the brands that you handle exist, how important was that in this very difficult time? And what have you learned from that you're taking forward?
Yeah, so I think again, as I said, coming back to the earlier point that I made around what are fundamental human drivers, because that's the lens that we use when we start looking at how consumer behaviors are changing. And clearly, what you were seeing was, I talked about how security and control became important human drivers. Connect was the other important one, right? Because we were, and intrinsically we know that humans are social creatures, and we were clearly, we had gone through lockdowns, and we had gone through what I would call as a forced cooping up. What we did realize was that absolutely, I think communities are important. It is in the way that brands can enable communities during those times. That's important. And our brands, our brands are social brands, right? So you would have a bag of Lay's with your friends, or you would have a bag of Lay's, or you would have a Pepsi with your friends and your family. So how do you really therefore how do you enable, and how do you meaningfully build a role for your brand in those, in that context is an important one for brands to answer. And let me give you an example. For instance, when you talked about, communities. So, what we realized was, and this is actually from my experience, my last experience, Pooja, when I was actually leading, the global flavors portfolio at PepsiCo. So I was leading Mirinda and 7 Up and Mountain Dew in our global marketing team, per se. In one of so Mountain Dew, for instance, is a brand which has actually been synonymous with gaming. And the brand has sought to connect gamers in a very authentic way through banner partnerships, through new flavors and unique experiences. And we realized that during the pandemic, as you would have expected, right, online gaming saw an exponential increase with youth audiences, right? And what was happening was, during lockdowns across the world, both as a means of entertainment and as a means of social connection, people were moving to gaming. And on Dew, around the time, we had globally partnered with with PUBG Mobile, and the question that we had asked ourselves was, how can we do it in a way that the esports community and gamers see us as enhancing the experience? So in that community, how do you build a role for yourself that is seen as not interruptive, not seen as interfering, not seen as creating activations that make you look like an outsider? I think that is important. In communities, you must realize the role of the brand has to be that of an enabler. And I'll give you as an example, right? As part of the program, players were actually around the world were able to power up, at what we called in-game Mountain Dew fuel stations, which were available across the game's newest map for a limited time. And so what we were doing was, we were actually providing loot during the gameplay through these breakthrough fuel stations, and making the gaming experience even more epic, even more memorable, right? So fans in international, in specific markets could actually, say the Middle East, in Europe, could actually unlock rewards and in-game prizes with purchase of specially marked Mountain Dew cans. The point I'm making is, communities were important. I think it's important for brands to realize that they've got to pivot to communities, in the new context of the pandemic. So whether it's Lay's in-home packs, which is or work at home packs, and building say online communities around that, or whether it's gaming on Mountain Dew, and doing so in a way that actually enhances consumer experiences and does not take away from them. I think those were the two learnings that we actually had around communities.
Sorry, I was on mute, but thanks for that, Anshul. That was very insightful. Smita, I'll come to you. And in your business, I feel, my experience tells me that community, when it comes to categories like food, beverage, even fashion for that matter, play a very important role. But is there a role for communities in sleep industry, for example? Can it play a more meaningful role when it comes, because there's something that I picked up on what you said, which is the importance of sleep, which is just such a great space to operate in. Even from a future standpoint, the importance of mental health has never been more important than it is today. Is that the role Duroflex will continue to play, and the importance of community?
Absolutely, Pooja. I think that's a very important question overall. So, for us as a brand pre-pandemic, internally, we really believed in the importance of sleep. In fact, that's one of our induction modules. You have to come and believe that sleep is important for your health. And unlike most of us who worked in India and were, coming to office tired and saying that you burned the midnight oil working was like a proud moment, at Euroflex, it's a strict no-no. So if you walk around saying you worked very hard and therefore not slept, it's a red flag. So I think the culture itself was really built around that. So authentically, very honestly, and across all levels, we really believe that sleep is the essence of good life, good performance, efficiency at work, everything. The only difference was pre-pandemic, consumers were not willing to listen to this conversation, right? It was the last thing anybody was interested in, and the 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 rules of the game was really about selling the product, selling not very value added product. Therefore, consumers were not willing to pay a price for it. So it was just a Me Too product that they were interested in buying. Pandemic changed the listening more than what we were willing to say, and therefore we could say a lot more. So for us, sleep was always the essence. We could double down on it. We could get consumers attention. We could also talk a lot on the social media platforms because consumers were engaged, right? They were all the time on it, so we could get a lot of experts talking about it and really build the whole momentum around sleep in India. However, it's great internationally. It is the pillar, the causes for good or bad mental health, one of the main reasons. So internationally, the conversation has beautifully lended itself to strengthen the, about sleep. So we've really built a whole ecosystem where there is a strong percentage of our marketing efforts and conversations which go around sleep, and we get experts, we get doctors. We're doing a lot of research. So apart from selling products and researching on that, we do have a research wing that is researching around sleep, and therefore what is the products, because ultimately there needs to be something that impacts. You can't just share knowledge, you have to also provide solutions. So we call ourselves Sleep Solutions brand, where ultimately we are expanding our product portfolio, our knowledge sharing, and giving more solutions to improve people's sleep. So for us, honestly, this is a long journey. We've just started it by being the thought leaders and spreading the knowledge and talking about it constantly in all our efforts, and which goes much beyond selling. We've created zones and facilitations even at our stores. So in our experience centers, we've also upped the game and offline, by the way, where we've launched our experience centers, which are really world class, and the whole experience of buying a mattress in India is completely transformed. And a lot of those stores have a section which is dedicated as a sleep clinic, where you can go and talk to an expert and really understand. So those are some of the interventions that we've started to make. Having said that, it's a long journey and it's a collective journey. While we are talking as a brand, we also are more than happy with more brands joining in, more thought leaders joining, and collectively bringing the importance about sleep. So in a nutshell, if you stand for a cause, and if you believe as a brand you're a starting point for that cause, I think it's great to invite your competition, to invite a lot more people, and really rally behind that cause. And that's really the focus that we are trying to drive. And we are trying to learn from the West. We are trying to learn from the conversations around mental health, different topics which are impacted because of sleep. We're really thinking, how can we impact the lives of consumers? So we're also working on more sustainable choices that we can offer. We are doing a lot of things which will probably impact the life of consumers maybe 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line. So the learnings that we've got from the pandemic and its effect. So all in all, marketing and brand building for us is not what we are doing today, but it is how it will evolve and impact our consumers' life in the future. At this point, now that we've experienced the uncertainties of the pandemic, and I think we should be ready for a world like that as marketers and as brands, and really prepare for what's next, because it's coming, right? So for us, we're really in that moment, even in the topic that we talk about, sleep. Yeah.
Thank you, Smita. Anand, for you, I'm going to just pull from what Smita said, which is Duroflex is using their physical retail spaces more as experience centers today, right? I mean, at least some of them. You're a champion when it comes to physical retail. There is nobody as large as you guys in your category. Has this world, because you and you've experienced that, as you said, the numbers are tell you that digital retail is playing an extremely impactful role in your bottom line. Does the role of physical retail change then?
So absolutely, the role of physical retail has evolved. It has been evolving, I would say, in the past 3 to 5 years. But I think the pandemic actually changed it. I would say, fast forwarded the role to probably like 10x, I would say, and that's where, the role of a much more interactive experience inside the stores came in. You need to rely less, and I'll give you, 2-3 examples in a minute. You need to rely less on, let's say, a promoter, and you should be actually in a more self-serve mood also. That also started coming in. You work with a certain intention, to a store, and knowing that the store would actually have a product. So certainty of availability was very important. And that's where some of the solutions need to be created by, I would say, different retailers. So for us at Bata, the transition to omni-channel actually came in. And what we did, there were multiple solutions that we created right from the start of the journey, which is the discovery phase, to even purchase and post-purchase. So at the start of the journey, one of the first things in the fashion industry is, how do you measure your size? Either you walk into a retail store or you already know your size, So for us in shoes, it can be tricky because people own multi-brands. And so we created very simple, service. You can actually scan, so use an existing link, which was available on WhatsApp and on our website also, and also on some of our social media profiles. Use a link, you can scan your feed and it will tell you, what is your Bata standard size. So then what you can do is, even before stepping into a store, you can either call the store manager and say, I'm looking for this, do you have my sizes? Or when you are inside the store, because you don't want to touch in, on the size measurement device, you can actually, do it digitally across there. So that's one example, across. Secondly, from time to time, we actually do send to consumers, what are their club points, what are the latest offers, what are the coupons there. So they can just scan. So QR code is actually becoming widely available in cameras these days on Android as well as iPhones. So, so that was another functionality that we rolled inside the store. The third one was something, if you see from this nature of industry, everything is actually available on the shelf. But if you want a different size, the promoter actually goes inside and then actually comes out after a couple of minutes, because he needs that time to look around. So we equip the promoters with something called as find a pair. So even before stepping inside, they would just punch in the article code and then the size. So within 10 seconds, they can tell a consumer, I have it. Or if I don't have it, I can get another shoe and it would give them the recommendation, something what Amit called. So the app itself gives them the recommendation that these are the 2 or 3 nearest designs across there. You can actually bring that. And if the customer insists that they want that particular design, you can make them trial a particular size. Let's say they are in size 7 or 8, and then you can order it via home delivery from another store. So that availability was no longer a constraint. The whole of the India was actually the inventory provider for you, whether it was a dark store or a warehouse or a store in a different city across. So these were some of the examples that we actually picked up, and this has actually helped us, increase the role of, let's say, customer experience and how experience is actually delivered to a customer, whether from self-serve to interactive to even at the point of sale. So a lot of those things actually came.
Thanks a lot for that, Anand. And to wrap up, I just have one question for all of you, and we'll take this as one sentence. How has the description of customer experience changed over the last couple of years? Amit, we'll start with you.
Okay, so I think a couple of things, right? One is I think it's forced everyone to now look at their customer. What we kind of look at right now is are you able to derive the maximum from your best customers, right? So are you looking at your best customer genome and saying, look, if 20% of my best customers, am I able to do something very exceptional for them in terms of the experience that I really want to build? So what we're really looking at is how do you look at the best, the rest, and the next, right? So for the best, you want to, of course, have the differentiated experience. For the rest, you want to make sure that some of them actually become the best, or they keep coming back to you and not going back to your competition. And some of the next customers, how do you make sure that they are in some way lookalikes of your? So I think that's one way to look at it, where you want to start looking at customers in these 3 segmented buckets. Apart from this, I think with a lot of content that's getting created around, I think we're also seeing a lot of attention recession that's really happening right now among users and consumers. So I think what's also going to be important is that how do you reward customers for their attention? Today, I think a lot of times you only look at thinking about entire customer experience journey. How do you start also rewarding them for their attention? I think that's the second thing that we're going looking at it. And the last thing that I think we're looking at is our that as we go along in this journey, brands need to start thinking about it in a more full stack environment. Am I just looking at solutions or products in silos, or am I thinking that how do I tackle this problem at a larger level? And I think to me, those are 3 set of things that will define CX as we go ahead.
But thanks for that, Amit. The best, the next, and the rest. That's really clever. I like that. Anshul, to you, in one line.
So, Pooja, I think the biggest mistake that marketers can make is to assume that we will go back to pre-pandemic times. The pandemic has driven fundamental shifts in consumer behavior. And to me, there's just 3 of those, the most important ones. One is hybrid ways of working. I think, blurring of divides that we were conventionally seeing. That's one. The second, I think, is about adoption of digital and e-commerce. As you yourself called out, it's a jump shift that we've seen and that will stay. And the third one, I think, is the importance that consumers are and the primacy that consumers are going to give to trust and security and health and hygiene. Now those drivers will stay. Now those parts, those aspects of the consumer experience are the ones that will stay, and it'll be very naive for marketers to believe that everything will go back to pre-pandemic times. That to me are the biggest shifts.
Yeah, thanks. Anand?
Sure. So I think I would say that during the pandemic, the customer experience actually evolved to more digitalization of the whole processes. The CMOs, CDOs, and CIOs became the best of friends because they need to deliver something for the best of the consumer. And personalization and automation was the key buzzwords, and I think they will actually drive the digital as well as I would say the omni-channel transition for many of the players, whether CPG or the retail across there. I think the future of CX would be, to actually start creating value for the consumer by balancing the machines on one side, which is the automation and personalization, with a human touch on the other side. So I think this balance needs to come through so that the whole process is actually humanizing the whole customer experience, and it's not just plain cold emails and the automated messages coming to the consumers. So it's more about human. It's more about restoring the balance.
Humanizing it. Yeah, I agree. Smita, to wrap it up.
Yeah, I think while a lot of things what we are doing while we sell is covered, consumer experience pre and during sales should be a given hygiene, more internalizing the importance of consumer centricity, but also consumer experience to talk about brand advocacy. That becomes something that brands should talk about and bring in their DNA, that what is the power of that one consumer's experience and how many more consumers will it build, giving more importance to the post experience where they do take the time and effort to talk about the brand, because more and more marketing will become something that's more honest and word of mouth and brands that are talked about, right? So I think the whole importance of consumer experience from a brand advocacy point of view, from a word of mouth point of view, uh, that is something we should start thinking first, and not necessarily just the sales point of view. That would be my 2 bits to this.
Thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time to have this very insightful conversation. I think we've got a lot of very, very interesting nuggets out of this discussion. And I was very happy to meet all of you. Hope everyone takes care. And, I hope we're all out of this very, very soon. And we're all back to, there is no new normal, and we actually have a normal with a lot of learning and experience. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone, for unraveling the topic and sharing some interesting insights. Now we'll proceed to the next discussion. Stay with us.